Chose to stay with dad after their divorce for practical reasons. My mom sees it as betrayal, and now treats me like a stranger. I know it sounds bad, and trust me, I regret a lot of things. Everything became so hard after my parents got divorced when I was 13. My childhood had been genuinely happy, and I was always closest to my mom. The divorce hit me so much harder than it did my older sister, Penny, who's 21 now. She just seemed to take it in stride, while I was completely lost. My mom moved out into an apartment and was swallowed up by this heavy, bitter depression. She drank a lot, and everything was just a mess. We were supposed to be with each parent 50-50, but the schedule was so annoying. I'd have to switch houses every 2 or 3 days, and because I went to a private school with uniforms, I was always in trouble for leaving things at the wrong house or not having what I needed. Then, out of nowhere, my mom moved 45 minutes away from my school. To solve things, they gave Penny a car so she could drive us, but since she didn't play sports and I did, she didn't want to hang around for me after practice. I was always waiting, sometimes stranded, and would just end up at my dad's house anyway. So eventually, I asked if I could stay with dad on weekdays and mom on weekends, just to make things easier. My dad wasn't thrilled about only having me for school days, so the compromise was me spending 1 weekend a month with him, and the other 3 with her. At first I thought it was great, but I could sense my mom seemed less fond of me, even if I didn't want to admit it. Penny was supposed to drive me, but sports kept messing with the routine. Some weekends, I'd call mom for a ride and she wouldn't be able to make it. I started spending even less time at her place. She and Penny got a lot closer. Penny only came to my dad's every other weekend by that point. Things came to a head in my sophomore year. I had a huge game, semifinals for state, and I was on varsity, and my mom didn't come. Instead, she was taking Penny prom dress shopping. I was going to prom too. I was dating a junior, so I tried to see if we could all go another time, but she just told me to ask dad. She was the one who got me into sports, always went to my games, so not seeing her there wrecked me. I played horribly, my mind spinning, waiting for her to show up, but she never did. After that, I just stopped going to her house altogether. We'd call now and then, see each other for holidays, but the distance never closed. I was so hurt, and she never apologized. But I still love her, and we're civil when we do see one another, even if it's not often. Lately, everything's been piling up. I lost a close friend. My dad's new girlfriend moved in, and I get the feeling she wants me out. It's complicated. She'll get mad if I don't clean up, but when I do, she'll snap and say things like, "You're not your dad's wife." I just keep trying to navigate it. And now, my mom is doing great. She remarried about a year ago and her new husband has 2 kids, Jake and Emma, 10 and 12. They're nice enough, but I barely know them. Before Christmas, my mom asked me if I could give Emma one of my old American Girl dolls. It wasn't an heirloom or anything, but it used to be my cousin's, and I just didn't feel comfortable handing it over to a virtual stranger. So I told her no, not mean, just honest. It's not like Emma couldn't get her own, honestly. After that, things got weird. I kept asking mom about Christmas plans, trying to find out where I should be and when, and she just never really answered. Normally I'd spend Christmas Eve with her, but she wouldn't tell me what was going on. On Christmas Eve, I texted her, asking when I could give her her gift, and she said she'd reach back out after the holidays. That hurt in a way I can't even explain, because never before had my mom not taken my calls or refused to see me. I figured maybe it was about the doll. Maybe I should have given her space, but I couldn't help myself, and texted her Happy New Year anyway. Then Penny came tearing into my life. She was furious, drove all the way over to scream at me. She told me I had to stop upsetting mom, that I'd broken her heart by picking dad. I tried to tell her it wasn't like that, but she hit me with something I never saw coming, that the divorce happened because dad had an affair, and I was an idiot for not figuring it out. Nobody ever told me that before. Dad hadn't dated anyone that I knew of until recently. I completely lost it. I told her to leave, clutching my mom's gift in my hand, too upset to give it to anyone. I haven't told my dad about any of it, but I've been drowning in guilt and sadness. I never wanted to hurt my mom, not ever. But now I feel like she's moved on without me. I see the photos she posts, her husband and his kids, Penny always there. It feels like there's no place for me anymore. And the worst part is, I keep thinking this is all my fault. Update 1. I talked to my parents, and it was absolutely awful. I finally confronted my dad about what my sister told me, and he admitted everything was true. Hearing him say it out loud hurt more than I expected. It brought back everything from a few months ago when my boyfriend cheated on me. That pain had still been raw, but my dad had actually helped me through it, made me feel safe. To hear he'd betrayed my mom, our family, felt like a punch in the gut. I also told him what his girlfriend had been saying to me, all the passive comments and backhanded things. He was upset by it, promised he'd handle it and talk to her. She does seem to be acting a little nicer these days, but honestly, I still don't trust her at all. My relationship with my dad is complicated now. I'm still hurt by what he did, but at the same time, I can't help but wonder if maybe he could still be a good dad and just not a good husband. Maybe people are worn out by each other. Or maybe his girlfriend is what he deserves. That sounds mean, but these are the things that rattle around in my head. Unfortunately, things with my mom have gotten even worse. We always had our Christmas tradition of going to the ballet together, it was our special thing. But a few years back, after my parents' divorce, she suddenly didn't want to go anymore. She just dropped it. I kept asking for a while, but she always had an excuse. Then last week, she made this post with Penny and Emma, her stepdaughter, the one she wanted me to give my old childhood doll to. And there they were, at the ballet. The very thing she refused to share with me anymore. The next day, when I saw Penny, I felt like she was waiting for me to bring it up, but I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. She asked me if I wanted to go in on Mom's birthday present, since it's coming up. I threw it back, asked if I'd even be invited to the party or dinner. She said that shouldn't matter, so I told her I wasn't getting Mom anything for events I'm not even invited to. I got her a Christmas present with no invitation over. I got her a wedding present but wasn't invited. Penny finally admitted Mom didn't invite me to her wedding because she didn't want me reporting anything back to my dad. She just wanted to enjoy eloping in the Caribbean without worrying about what her ex might hear. That stung so badly I called my mom about it. I could tell from her tone she was annoyed, but she said we could meet as long as I promised to listen. So I drove all the way to see her, and the whole time she was lecturing me about boundaries, how if I wanted her in my life I'd have to respect her terms, including giving her 3 days notice before seeing her, no last minute, and always including Emma in anything we did. I just snapped internally. I asked her again, straight up, about the wedding, and she admitted she just wanted to have her day, after everything. I have never once gossiped about my parents to each other, not once, not even when one of them wanted me to. And here was my own mother, caring more about her ex potentially finding out about her wedding than having her own daughter there. That was my breaking point. I know I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help it. I let it all out, all the exhaustion, all the pain of trying for years to get her to love me again. For what? She clearly doesn't want me around, so I told her that. I told her she could have fun with my replacement, but it would never be the same because Emma isn't her daughter, I am, and I'll always love my own mother more, no matter what. I told her my friends' moms bend over backward to spend time with their daughters, and I have to beg for scraps. There was so much more I wish I had the strength to say. I wish I'd told her where to shove her boundaries, but I just didn't have any juice left. But I did tell her she should forget she ever had me, then I left. She kept calling, and I looked it up. I'm 19, I can block her. And that's what I did. Penny and her husband started blowing up my phone next, but I told them if Mom wants boundaries, I'll have some too. She needs to respect mine. It's been really hard. I have a therapist who helps me sometimes, and honestly, I think cutting my mom out is the healthiest choice long term. I don't want to end up like her. If Penny wants to write me off, so be it. I have my friends, and we've decided to get an apartment together this summer. I think that will be good for all of us. When I told Dad, I could see he was sad, but I need to start my own life. It's true he'll be paying my rent, so part of me feels guilty, but we promise to have dinner at least twice a week. Even with everything that's happened, he's always shown up for me in a way my mom never has. Honestly, after learning what she's really like, I don't even blame him for what happened. I didn't know before, but I meant it, I really don't blame him. He actually seems to care. He's told me if his girlfriend says anything else off to me, I can tell him right away. She said she's new to this whole step-parenting thing and apologized, but I'm just not a fan of hers. Maybe it's just space, maybe moving out will help. I hope so. Update 2. I thought blocking my mom would give me quiet, but the universe apparently heard quiet and said actually, chaos. 2 days after I blocked her, I got a text from an unknown number that just said, "Hi. It's Emma. Can we talk?" It's not about the doll, I promise. I stared at it for a while, because I didn't know what to do with that, but she followed up with a photo of this tiny cardigan from an American Girl set and said, "I think this is yours." I told her she didn't have to give me anything and she said she knew, but could we meet somewhere public because she didn't want to get in trouble if her mom found out. We met by the fountain at the outdoor mall near my dad's. She looked nervous and 12 in the most literal way, chewed sleeve, little backpack, eyes darting around. She handed me the tiny sweater and a crumpled piece of stationery that had my mom's handwriting on it. It was a note to Emma, telling her to show Penny what her sister got her and to be careful brushing the doll's hair because it tangles. I felt really weird holding something my mom wrote, to another kid, about me like I'd been part of the gift. I told Emma I hadn't given her the doll and she said she figured that out because Mom didn't know the doll's name and kept calling it her doll like it was a family pet. Then she said she didn't want me to be mad at her because she actually liked it, but the note made her feel bad. I told her I wasn't mad at her at all, not even a little bit. I asked if my mom was okay, and she shrugged and told me Mom cries a lot when she thinks no one's around, and then said she wasn't supposed to tell me that, and could I please not say anything, and I promised I wouldn't. When I got home, Dad's girlfriend was setting the table and everything felt off, too many plates, too many napkins, like a party I hadn't RSVP'd to. I helped carry things, and she kept fussing over me, asking if I needed water, if I was okay, if I liked the roasted carrots, and I knew something was coming. After dinner she put her hand on my dad's arm and said they had news, and she said it in that bright voice people use for gender reveals, and then she said she was pregnant. The room went silent, even the clock sounded like it paused mid-tick. My dad didn't smile, Not at first. He looked at me. I think he knew immediately that this was going to change everything for me, and I hated how I could see the battle in his face between being someone's excited almost dad and my dad. I said congratulations because I'm not a monster, but it felt like someone was rearranging the furniture in my life without asking. Again. She started talking about due dates and nausea like we were all already in on it, like this was some show we'd been watching together, and I just told my dad I needed to be somewhere else. I called my friend and asked if the maybe we can move in early if the spring subletter leave situation had become a yes, and we made it a yes. I started boxing up my room that night. I told Dad I love him, and I do, and that I'd text him the new address and the nights for dinner once I knew them, but I couldn't keep doing the emotional hopscotch in that house with a woman who vacuums my doorway so the line between her space and mine is always visible, and now a baby on the way. He helped me carry everything to the car, and he cried in the driveway, which I didn't expect. He said he was going to be a better father than he'd been a husband and asked me not to disappear on him, and I promised I wouldn't. His girlfriend watched from the window with her hand on her stomach like it was a value proposition. The sublet is tiny and smells like someone else's detergent, but it's mine in the way my lungs feel like mine after a run. We shoved a futon into the corner and hung a thrifted curtain so my room feels real, and I put the little doll sweater on my lamp because I don't know, it made me feel like I could reclaim at least one thing people kept trying to rebrand in my name. I slept like the kind of sleep you only get after crying in a moving car. The next morning, my grandmother called from an actual landline. I hadn't talked to her in months, not because I don't love her, but because everything with my mom bleeds onto everyone around her. She said she heard I was moving out and asked if I could come by for tea. Her house is the one place that hasn't changed, the same ivy on the fence, the same lemon cookies in the blue tin that used to hold sewing things. She put her hand on my cheek and told me I looked tired, and then she did what moms do in my head when I make them up, fed me without making it a performance. We talked about school in the apartment and she asked if I felt safe. I told her yes. She asked if anyone had been asking me for money or favors or guilt I didn't know, and I laughed because she knew exactly where to poke. She told me she knew about the wedding. She said she hadn't gone either, not because she wasn't invited, but because she refused to go to a vacation version of a wedding while her granddaughter sat home. She pulled an envelope out of the drawer and slid it to me, and it was 2 tickets to the ballet in February. I saw the poster and thought of you, she said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. I didn't even decide, I just went. I put on the only dress I didn't leave behind and wore my hair the way my mom always used to braid it for me, even though that felt like stitching an old memory to a new one, and I met my grandmother on the steps. It was weird and beautiful and painful in that way where your chest feels too big and too small at the same time. We took our seats and it felt like being inside a snow globe the way the lights came up. At intermission, we were walking the lobby and I heard Penny say my name like she'd swallowed it wrong. My mom was there with Penny and Emma, and for a second, everything froze, the way it does in a dream right before you realize you're dreaming. My mom looked at me like she'd seen a ghost, then like she'd seen an animal in the road and wasn't sure if it would dart or bolt. She stepped toward me like she was approaching a skittish thing and said my name very quietly. I said hi. She looked at the tickets in my hand and then at my grandmother, and it registered, I think, that she wasn't in control of this scene at all. She started with the same script, how she wished I had told her I was going to be there so she could have made sure Emma was part of the plan, how she would have appreciated some heads up, like the ballet was her living room and not a public building where people can buy tickets. I felt that snapping, that spark that says do not do this again to yourself, do not let her pull you into the maze. So I said, I'm here with Grandma. That's all. My grandmother took my hand, and it was such a small thing, but I could feel the shift when she did it. My mom's face went flat in that way she does when she's deciding whether to be wounded or angry. Emma ducked around Penny and hugged me. She just wrapped her arms around me and said, you look pretty, right into my collarbone like we'd known each other forever. My mom told her to come back, and Emma did, because she's 12 and that's how it works, but she gave me that look kids have when they've decided you're safe, and it split me wide open and stitched me back up all in 1 second. We didn't argue. We didn't hash anything out by the fountain. My mom said, we can talk if you're ready, and I said, maybe another time, and I meant it. I don't know if that means next month or in 5 years, but I did know her my intermission. Penny looked like she had 100 speeches lined up behind her teeth, but she didn't use any of them. She just watched me. I don't know what she saw. After the show, there was a paper bag tucked under my windshield wiper. It had the ballet program from the first time my mom took me, the one with the chocolate stain in the corner from when I was 7 and couldn't sit still and dropped a truffle, and a picture of us in the lobby with my hair in a messy braid. There wasn't a note, no instructions, no terms, just the things. I think she wanted me to see that once upon a time she did try. I think she wanted me to remember what she remembers. I took the picture and the program home and put them on my dresser next to the little sweater, and I let them all sit there, all those versions of me and my mom staring at each other. The next morning, Dad texted to ask if I was okay, and I told him about the ballet and that I was okay, actually. He asked if he could stop by and bring a coffee and see the apartment like a normal dad, and he did, and he didn't mention the pregnancy once. He asked if my futon was hurting my back, and when I said yes, he said, okay, I can fix that, and I believed him. Later, I got an email from my mom because I guess that's how you politely break through a block. It was just a line, I'm glad you went. No boundaries, no conditions, no 3-day notice language, just that. I still don't know what to do with it. I don't know if she sent it because she's changing or because she saw that nothing she could say would change what's happening, which is that I'm finally building things that don't require her permission. I didn't reply. I closed my laptop and went to the kitchen and ate leftover pasta with my roommate at the counter like we were in a movie about girls who figure it out in their 20s. I keep thinking about how everyone keeps handing me things with my name on them that I didn't ask for, the doll, the baby, the boundaries, and then this week, for the first time in a long time, I got to choose what I wanted to hold. I picked the tickets. I picked my grandma's hand. I picked the little sweater on my lamp. It felt small and huge at the same time. I don't know what comes next, but for once, I'm not bracing for it like a punch. I'm making dinner plans and looking at rugs and looking forward to spring. And if my mom decides she wants to meet me somewhere public with no rules but basic human kindness, maybe we'll start there. If not, I'll still be here, in my little place, with my lamp glowing warm and a program that reminds me I wasn't wrong about what we had. It just didn't stay. Update 3. I thought the one-line email would be the end of it for a while, like a period you can step over, but then my phone lit up with a name I still don't like seeing and a text that said, "Are you home?" It was my dad's girlfriend. I almost didn't answer because my gut does this instant flinch with her, but then she sent, I think, "Something's wrong," and every other feeling I had just shut up. She was alone. He was in a meeting 2 cities over. There was spotting and a voice that kept trying not to shake and losing. Hospitals at noon are the strangest kind of bright. Everything hums. The nurse put us in a room with a poster about hand washing that was way too cheerful, and I held a little plastic cup of water like it was going to tell me what to do. When the tech put the cold gel on her stomach, she grabbed my wrist like I was a railing on a ferry and we both had to pretend we weren't scared. There was a second where it was just static and my chest went hot and hollow, and then the screen flickered and you could hear it, a fast, watery thrum, like a kid bouncing a ball in an empty gym. I didn't expect to cry. I did anyway, quietly, because it felt rude not to. We sat in that paper crinkly silence after and she apologized like she broke a glass. She said, "I know you don't like me," which is such a blunt sentence it landed like a book. She told me she wasn't around back then, that she knew about the affair from my dad and that it wasn't her. She said it like she could put the words between us and we'd both stop bleeding on them. She told me her own stepmom had been the kind of person who marked her territory in toothbrush holder inches and chore charts, and the last thing she wanted was to be that cliché with nicer throw pillows. And then she looked at her hands and said, "I think I've been that anyway. I'm sorry." I didn't forgive her, not like a switch, but something unclenched. We drove home with a paper bag of saltines and some instructions and a photo that looks like a moon rock. She made me come upstairs and sit down so she could hand me a blanket like she'd practiced being gentle and wanted to try it out on someone. When my dad finally burst through the door half an hour later, he looked at her, then me, then the doctor's printout, and I watched his face do that impossible math of 2 things mattering hugely at the same time. He kissed the top of my head like I was still 10 and whispered, "Thank you," into my hair. I wanted to be mad that gratitude felt so good. I went home to my little apartment and the futon did that thing where it announces its metal bones every time you breathe. The next day a delivery truck double parked outside and a guy with forearms like tree trunks hauled a real mattress up my stupid narrow stairs like it was nothing. There was a note taped onto the plastic, my dad's handwriting, just, "Okay, I can fix that." He still didn't mention the baby. We installed it together, if you can call it installing, to cut plastic and wait for foam to inhale itself. He took his shoes off at the door without being told and complimented my thrift store lamp in a way that didn't make it sound like I was a raccoon with a budget. 2 days later I got another unknown number, and my stomach did the bad circus thing, but it was Emma again. "Do you know how to make a family tree?" she wrote. Then, they said it has to go on a poster. She sent a picture of a worksheet with little boxes and the word half in parentheses next to sibling, neatly printed by someone who loves to underline. Her mom told her to leave my box blank and she didn't want to. "Can I come over instead of the library?" she asked, because the librarian knows my mom now, like that was a thing in the world a 12-year-old should have to consider. She came to the apartment in a hoodie with stars on the sleeves and immediately hung up her backpack on the back of the chair like she was respecting the space of a tiny museum. We ate orange slices out of a bowl because I wanted there to be some kind of snack and that was what I had. We cut little squares from junk mail and glued them in the right places and I said, "You don't have to write the word half if you don't want to," and she looked relieved and wrote "sister," just that, and drew a heart without making eye contact like the heart would be too loud. My door buzzer started shrieking like it had a problem with the world, and when I pressed the button, my mom's voice came through tinny and staticky, asking to be let up. That old instinct, to scramble, to tidy the air, to pre-apologize, hit me so hard I wanted to sit down. I opened anyway, because I live here, and she walked in with her mouth set like she was bracing for a pain she planned to tell me I caused. She looked around like the apartment might be a trick. She saw the poster board and the glue stick and her daughter's handwriting, and for a second I thought she might smile. Then she didn't. "This is exactly what I asked you not to do," she said, not loud but heavy. Emma froze. For a beat I could see all the futures, the crying one, the begging one, the one where I make a soft thing out of myself and lay down so she can walk over it. I picked a different one. "We're making a school project," I said. There are no rules here except be kind and don't burn the place down. You can stay or go, but we're finishing this. She looked at me like I'd switched languages. My grandma always says the trick to an argument with someone who packs an argument like a go bag is to pull all the zippers and quietly tip it out on the floor. My mom opened and closed her mouth and then, this felt like an eclipse, her husband stepped into the doorway behind her with his keys still in his hand. He didn't try to be anyone's new father or old referee. He said, "We don't punish kids for wanting to draw the people they love," and my mom's shoulders did a tiny drop, like a coat, slipping off a hook. She didn't apologize. She sat down on the arm of my chair and watched Emma draw a little tree that looked nothing like a tree and everything like a map. She didn't try to add rules. She just sat there and breathed for once without making it a test. When they left, my mom paused with her hand on the knob like a person in a movie who is about to say the thing and then chooses not to. She said, "You have a nice place," the way people say nice about a haircut they can't fix. I said, "Thanks," and reminded myself that I don't have to turn crumbs into bread anymore. That night, an email came. Longer than the last one. No subject line, just a block of text like a dam giving way. She wrote about the apartment she moved into after the split with a window that wouldn't open and how the laundry room ate quarters and socks equally. She told me she still has my third grade note where I wrote, "Please wear lipstick to the game, you look like a coach when you do," and that she tried to put it on in the car and cried it off before she got there. She told me she bought the doll from a resale site and told herself she was converting it into a family heirloom like you can baptize an object, and then hated herself for asking Emma to say it was from me. She said she didn't invite me to the wedding because she wanted a day where she wasn't the woman whose husband had cheated in the room with the woman who looked like him, and the second she typed that she knew it was a coward's calculus. I have been moving furniture around in my heart for years to make space for other people's kids and I forgot to leave a couch for you, she wrote. It wasn't perfect. It was not excuse-free. It was not an apology in the clean way people want. But it was the closest thing to her voice I've heard in years, the one that used to hum when she French braided my hair and told me my scalp was sensitive like it was a personality trait. I read it twice and then took a shower because I wanted to do something physical that wasn't crying. My roommate knocked on the door with a Target bag and a bath mat she bought because she said the tile was a hazard and I laughed until it sounded like I hadn't done that in a while. Yesterday, I walked to my grandma's with a bag of lemons because she likes to pretend the grocery store doesn't sell them and that the only real ones come hand-delivered from grandchildren. She was mending a tear in one of my grandpa's old sweaters like she was in a commercial for steadiness. I told her about the hospital and the poster board and the email and how every room I walk into lately has a different version of my life waiting in it like a pop-up book. She pulled a little cardboard box off the top of her pantry and gave it to me like we were trading secrets. Inside were photo booth strips of my mom at 19, tongue out, eyes wide, the exact face I make when someone says act natural and I forget how to be a person. On the back of one of them, in her spiky handwriting, it said, "Sometimes I think I'm going to be a terrible mother," and under it, my grandma had written, in blue pen, "Sometimes you will be and sometimes you won't. That's what being one is." On my way home, I stopped at a plant store that always smells like wet dirt and Better Choices and bought a pothos I named Absolutely Not because I wanted to make the joke to myself every time I water it. I put it on the shelf above my bed next to the ballet program and the little sweater and the sonogram photo I am not sure what to do with. I wrote back to my mom. Just a line. "I read this," I said. "I'm not ready to fix it with a phone call. You can email me like this if you want. No plans, no terms." She wrote back, "Okay." That was it. No timetable. No choreography. Just okay. And then, because the universe can hold 10 things at once, my old coach called to ask if I could help with a Saturday clinic for elementary school girls because 2 volunteers bailed and you know how to keep a scrimmage from turning into capture the flag. I said yes before I could talk myself into a cave. The gym smelled like rubber and popcorn and the kind of noise that fills your lungs. Emma showed up with her hair in 2 lopsided pigtails and her sneakers untied, like she'd slipped out of something to be there. My mom stood in the doorway with a coffee and watched me make a relay line out of chaos and didn't interrupt once. Afterward, one of the little kids pressed a sweaty sticker onto my arm like a medal and Emma took a picture of it and sent it to me with 2 blue hearts. Update 4. The plant over my bed put out a new leaf that looks like a folded boat and my phone buzzed with a text that said, "Heard it from the inside," which I stared at until a follow-up came. "Kick, do you want to feel a kick?" It was her. My dad's girlfriend. I almost wrote back not particularly and then the picture came through, her hand flat on her belly like she was listening through her palm. I went because apparently my body says yes while the rest of me is still writing emails about boundaries. In the car she kept the air too cold and the radio too low and told me the thing about fruit sizes like it was a riddle. "I'm supposed to say mango," she said. "Or turnip. I don't know, I don't want him to be produce." We sat on her couch later with our socks off like that would make us smaller and she moved my hand around like a divining rod. There was nothing and nothing and then under my fingertips a tap so faint I second guessed it until it happened again, like someone knocking from the other side of a wall. I didn't cry this time. I laughed, this hiccup sound that surprised both of us. "That's him?" I asked, like we were in on a prank. She nodded and then blurted, too fast, "If it happens again, and your dad's not reachable, could I call you?" "Not to be anything. Just to not be alone. I sat there with my hands still on her belly and counted the exact tiles on her ceiling I could see, and then I said, "Okay. You can call me. I can leave if I need to." She said, "Deal," the way people do in movies when they shake on it, but we didn't. 3 days later, Emma sent a picture of 2 green construction paper triangles and wrote, "Science fair is volcanoes but also plants. Can you come?" She added, "Penny says yes" as a full sentence. I told her I'd be there and she asked if we could make the volcano bubble more than last year because Dad said last year was more like a swamp. I had a couch cushion piled with unpaid adulthood, mail that wasn't all mine and a towel I kept forgetting to hang and an invitation to a prenatal class with a cartoon lemon on it, and I went to the dollar store and bought more baking soda than felt legal. The school cafeteria still smelled like pizza from 28 years ago and the tables had that faint metal taste in the air I remember from being a kid who thought everything was a stage. I found her poster, Photosynthesis and Explosions, and put the extra vinegar under the table like contraband. My mom appeared at my shoulder like a weather pattern. She had on lipstick, my shade not hers, and her hair looked too carefully casual. She put a hand on Emma's back and then took it off like the space was hot. "Thank you for helping," she said, clipped, like a string tied tight. I kept my eyes on the baking soda volcano and said, "Sure." Her husband squeezed in with a plate of PTA cookies and I braced for him to be weird about me and instead he handed me a napkin and said, "Do we have a plan for overflow or do we accept chaos as a teaching tool?" I said chaos, absolutely, and we both grinned like we'd agreed to something important. When Emma did her demo, the vinegar went down too fast and the whole mountain tried to retire in a fizzy avalanche. Emma gasped, got that wobble lip look, and my mom did something I didn't expect. She laughed, not at her but with her, the kind of laugh that pops the balloon without letting it fly away. "Spectacular," she said, like a judge on a better show than we deserve. Emma steadied. She did her plant part and said chlorophyll with a little flourish and then drew an arrow to a cutting in a jar and wrote absolutely maybe on the index card because I brought her a piece from my pothos. She told a tiny man with a clipboard that she named it after mine and looked at me like this was normal, family, whatever that's supposed to look like under fluorescent lights. Penny found me by the soda machine with a face like someone who hadn't slept because she didn't know which thoughts to put down without them running away. "I don't want to fight," she said, and for once she meant it. We stood there under a poster about anti-bullying and she rubbed a crease into her sleeve. "I carried Mom on my back for a long time," she said to the tile floor. "I thought if I made you wrong I could make it make sense." She looked up at me with our father's eyebrows and our mother's stubborn mouth. "I was mean. I'm sorry." She didn't hug me because we both know how that would go in a cafeteria full of sugar and posters, but she stayed. We talked about nothing that matters because sometimes that's the only way to get to anything that does. She told me she keeps a toothbrush in her glove compartment now because she ends up at Mom's more than at home. I told her I have a plant named Absolutely Not. She laughed, this tiny bark, and said, "Of course you do." It rained sideways the night everything got thin. My roommate went to her boyfriend's at the exact moment our front door decided it didn't owe me entry. I stood in the hallway in a damp hoodie with groceries bruising my fingers and the kind of panic that feels dumb and huge at the same time, like crying because your sock is wet when what you're really feeling is your life. My landlord sent a thumbs up emoji that looked like a dare. I scrolled past Dad because I knew he'd come with a toolbox and a speech about deadbolts and past her because the one thing I promised myself was not letting her be the only emergency option in my phone, and then I did the brave stupid thing and typed an email subject line that said, "Am I near you?" and waited. She answered like I'd rung a bell in a kitchen she was already in. "Yes. 10 minutes. She arrived with a thermos and 2 cups and a little surveyor's flashlight like we were going camping in the hall. She didn't tell me to call my landlord earlier next time or that I should keep a spare with a neighbor who isn't 20 and addicted to composting. She poured me tea that tasted like mints in the inside of her purse and we sat on the mat I keep meaning to replace, backs against opposite walls, knees barely not touching. We listened to a woman upstairs yell at a reality show and a baby down the hall do that thready pre-cry in our own breathing. "I'm going to therapy," she said eventually, like she was reporting a weather change. "I don't know what to tell you about it yet. It makes me feel muscle sore. Good sore, maybe. Or just new." She looked at the door like if she concentrated hard enough it would apologize. "I keep thinking about your hair," she added, and my scalp actually prickled. "How I used to braid it too tight because I wanted it to look right for you and then you'd squirm and I'd get mad at you for not being still enough to be loved the way I was trying to love you." I didn't say anything because anything I said would have knocked the air out of that moment. We drank her tea and the locksmith showed up acting like the lock had betrayed him personally. She paid him, even though I told her I couldn't meant it, and she shrugged and said, "Let me fix one thing badly. It will make me feel better," which is the most honest she's been in a decade. When the door opened and my apartment breathed again, she didn't cross the threshold. She stood there and looked past me at my tiny life, the thrifted curtain, the lamp with the little sweater like a joke between me and myself, the plant going brave over the bed. "You really do have a nice place," she said, not like a haircut this time, but like a field you don't want to step on because it looks so green and small and perfectly yours. She left without asking for a plan. I sent her, later, a one-sentence thank you that felt like passing a note in class. She wrote back, "You're welcome, period," the safest punctuation in the world. The next week was made of small things that stuck. My dad came for dinner and cut his hamburger in half like a toddler and asked me about my syllabus with actual curiosity and, at the door, handed me a set of keys to a sedan older than me with a dent like a dimple and a license plate frame that says World's Best Mom. I laughed so hard I leaned against the hall. He said, "It came like that," and I said, "I'm keeping it, because the universe likes a joke too and sometimes I can take one." I named the car Mrs. Doubtfire on the way to the grocery store and she stalled once at a red light like she was working through her own feelings and then agreed to go. Emma came over after school with a yogurt that leaked into her backpack and we cleaned it in my sink like washing a cat and she asked if we could propagate. Absolutely not together because her jar on the science table used to fog up in a way that felt like a friend breathing. We put a cutting in water in a jelly jar and she named it Absolutely Maybe, and we didn't say why that felt right. My phone buzzed at 9 with a false alarm sorry from the person who asked to call me and I typed back I'm up, and meant it with zero resentment, which startled me. Penny texted me a picture of a diner menu with the caption pick something with syrup and no conversation topics that require tissues. We met in a booth that had carved initials from before either of us could drive and she put her phone face down with the kind of discipline you learn from being in charge too young. We ate pancakes that tasted like childhood and paper plates and decided we could do this again without any of it meaning everything. She told me she told Mom she was stepping back a little. I told her I was stepping forward a little. We did not toast to that because it would have been corny as hell and also perfect and I don't know who gets to call a moment like that what it is. I keep waiting for a rooftop confession or a letter that explains all the math I've been doing in my head since I was 13, but mostly it's been groceries and locks and little plants trying to root in water that gets cloudy unless you change it. My mom sent me 2 emails in a row without asking for anything. One with a recipe for lemon pasta I already know by heart and one with a picture of me in a too big uniform holding a trophy like a sandwich, captioned "You used to hate when I cried at games. I might still." I sent her a picture of the plant jar. She wrote back, "Of course you named it that," and I could hear her smile without seeing it. The last day of the clinic session, the girls made a line that refused to be a line and I blew my whistle in a way that made the gym laugh. Emma skidded to a stop next to me with her shoelace trailing like a comet and said, very seriously, "If you get me a real ref whistle I will not abuse it," and I believed her. When I looked up, my mom was in the doorway again, coffee balanced on the palm of her hand like a trick she was practicing, and she didn't wave or mouth anything or try to edit the moment. She just watched me doing something I'm good at and there was that same old look on her face from a program in a paper bag, proud and wrecked and trying. I can't do the fixing for her. I can't do the waiting in the old way. But I can pick up the pieces that are mine and set them where I want them. A car with a silly frame, a plant that says maybe, a door that opens, a list of phone numbers I can actually call when I need to. The rest is just us figuring out how to stand in the same gym without turning it into a courtroom. So far, nobody's keeping score. That feels like a win.